Misophonis, the city of dreams. A place where paupers go to make their fortune and princes go to invest their wealth. A city brimming with magic, both arcane and divine, where wizards discuss lore in lavish towers and priests chant hymns in massive congregations. A port where trade happens in open bazaars, shady inns, and everywhere in between. Everyone in Proterra has a reason to go to Misophonis, and the same is true for our group of adventurers. But our adventure does not start in Misophonis, no. It starts in a peculiar lair. Traveling through the thick wooded path of the brambled greenwood forest, the last thing our adventurers remember is not the dense forestry that lines the trail, but instead a feeling of intense grogginess as a dart sinks into each of their necks. The first person to wake is Amdar. He is not used to being asleep. His wood-elven heritage has landed him many nights being spent in a dreamlike trance instead of the deep sleep like the rest of the humanoids who populate Proterra enjoy. Lying on his back, the only thing he can see above him is a massive hole where only the bits of forest light that manage to break through the dense canopy shine on him. He feels around and is met with a horrible squelch. In a rush, Amdar scrambles to his feet, seeing the gruesome scene that lay before him. A pile of bodies lay on a pedestal, bloody and beaten. At the very bottom, Amdar spots what looks to be skeletons, indicating the age of the bodies that were left here. No rhyme or reason for this atrocity appears evident to our adventurer, for he spots the bodies of humans, elves, dwarves, and halflings, all in various stages of death and decay. At the top of the pile, Amdar spots a halfling, a long quarterstaff affixed to his back by a strap and wearing just a simple robe. Poor kid, Amdar thinks to himself. He had spotted this halfling also making the dangerous journey to Misophonis, now cut short by whatever force had brought them to this strange altar. Just then, Amdar sees a figure stir underneath the halfling, as a red-bearded dwarf wearing the insignia of the Half-Blood Army rises, cracking his back as he climbs to his feet. Duradin Dorakun was no stranger to death, but as he looked around, seeing the shocked face of the wood elf stare back at him, he was wondering why he was suddenly surrounded by it once more. "Where are we?" Duradin asks Amdar, who instinctively stands in a defensive stance. I know just as much as you do." "Well, how about a name then?" "I'm Amdar Nazud. Duradin Dorakun, 2nd Lieutenant of the 73rd Company," Duradin responds before pausing. "You're no brood, are you?" Amdar shook his head. His home tree had no part of the war between the half-bloods and broods. Amdar was well read, especially after his friend had, appeared and disappeared, and so he knew about Proterra, but he had no doubt that some of his own siblings had no knowledge of the world, or the war. Another surprise scares Amdar, as the halfling Amdar spotted earlier jumps up to his feet. This was so exciting for Quentin. He had left his quaint halfling village looking for adventure, but he didn't expect to find it so soon. "I'm Quentin," the halfling pops up, greeted only by the dwarf's weapon in his face. Durden lowers his battle axe, however. You scared me. Don't do that again." "Oops, sorry," Quentin apologizes meekly. "Any ideas why we've been captured?" Durden asks as he looks over at the gory pile of bodies. "They left our weapons, gear. My pockets are still full. This isn't any bandit shakedown." "No clue," Amdar says. "Well, we better check for other survivors," Durden commands. He hadn't been in the army since the incident at Heinous Valley, but that didn't mean he had forgotten how to deal with a situation like this. "Yes, sir," Quentin exclaims in a mock salute, making his way to the pile. Amdar takes a moment and inspects the surroundings of the room. The tiles here are ancient. He notices a thin groove in the ground, starting from the pedestal and proceeding through to the next room, underneath the old stone door. In the groove, a thin current of blood drips from the gory pile of bodies in the center of the room. This looks quite old," Amdar mutters aloud. Durden takes a glance at the tiles. All those lessons he taught in stonemasonry before he joined the army were most welcome here. Looks like racial federation architecture. This is pre-modern era work right here. maybe 4 to 5,000 years before today. At the pedestal, however, Quentin is not admiring the construction, unlike the other two. Instead, he is pilfering through the bodies. Buried in the pile, he spots an opulent necklace, a symbol of a lightning bolt surrounded by a circle, before a sudden line strikes through the emblem in the center. "My first treasure!" Quentin thinks to himself before swiping at the necklace. But suddenly, a dark bronze hand grasps around Quentin's waist, the scaled fingers ending at sharp points which pierce into his skin. Rising from the pile of bodies is a hulking dragonborn, his metallic scales so burnished that the bronze appears more akin to a shade of burgundy. Quentin jumps back in surprise, his nimbleness allowing him to wrench free from the claws of the dragonborn before him. The large dragonborn surveys the room with a smoldering gaze, his dominating presence felt among the three who stood there. Even standing on the pedestal, it was clear that this dragonborn was more than 8 foot tall, and his muscles rippled underneath his simple acolyte garb. "Big Black Mike," the dragonborn speaks, "prophet of the western provinces and follower of Sesaragi." "Aye, it's good to meet you, Mike," Durden meets his greeting. "Seems like we've been captured." "Does look that way." "Any ideas why we've been captured?" Mike says. "I was wondering the same thing," Durden responds. "And," Amdar pauses as he looks at the bodies piled on the pedestals, "why did we survive?" "Beats me." "Huh. Well, seeing as we're all in this situation," Amdar considers, "maybe it's in all our best interest to see that we get out." Durden nods. "Aye, I was about to suggest the same. There is strength in numbers." Quentin jumps up excitedly. Does this make us an adventuring party? Quentin knew all the best adventurers had parties, just like Pippin, the hero of his small village Pipesmoke. Big Black Mike nods. "I'm not opposed to the idea. It's important I reach Masophonis." He's met with a chorus. "Me too. Same here. I was heading there as well." "It's settled then. Let's find a way out." Together, this group looks towards the old stone door that separates them from the rest of this unholy dungeon. Amdar knows that the line of blood continues past this door. He hopes it was not a portent of things to come. The newly formed party collectively push against the door, hearing the loud grind of stone on stone as they open a path forward. In front of them stands a long hallway, blood splattered across its walls. Bored in the middle of the room was a large hole, what the blood seemed to flow towards, pooling in its depths. Surrounding that hole are 3 skeletons, rusted swords at their sides and cracked leather vests around their bodies. Amdar's nose twinges at the smell that lingers here. It is not a pleasant one. The group slowly approached the other end of the hallway, hoping that solace would be found on the other side. But instead, the skeletons begin to rise, as if commanded by an unfamiliar hand, puppeting them against the group. Durden wastes no time. He rushes forward. There is a time for tactics, and there's a time for violence. This is a time for violence. He brings his battle axe down on the first skeleton, slashing away at its bony body. The skeleton reels, mouth agape and emotionless, its eyes empty sockets, yet still staring through Durden. Amdar quickly flips through his spellbook, finding the bookmarked page towards the front. He summons a bolt of roaring flame in his hands and throws it towards one of the skeletons, the firing impacting its body and pushing it back. Quentin rushes forward. His first battle! Gleefully, he brings down his quarterstaff into the skeleton, rendering it into a motionless pile of bones, before throwing a fist towards the other one. The skeletons, animated by the power of anti-life, are not to be taken lightly, however. The 2 remaining skeletons slash down at Durden and Quentin, deadly force behind their blows. Durden throws up his battle axe to parry the strike, but Quentin feels the full brunt of the attack. The blood falls from Quentin's shoulder and begins to pool inside the deep pit in the room, as if pulled there by some magnetic force. Immediately, the skeletons begin to move more ferociously, as if now empowered by that strike. Quentin reels back slightly. The stories he had heard never mentioned how much it hurt to be struck by a sword. The skeletons once more lunge towards the pair of marshals, preparing even more deadly strikes. But Amdar feels his hair begin to rise as his skin prickles on his back he turns around and is greeted by Big Black Mike in all his glory, with one hand clutching the holy symbol and another outstretched towards the skeletons, as if to damn them he calls out to his god. "Sesaragi, I pray to thee, grant me the power to banish these undead." A bolt of lightning seems to reverberate in Mike's eyes as the skeletons both look at the cleric. They pause before running away from the imposing dragonborn, as if instilled with a fear that passed the barrier between life and death. In their cowardice, Durden and Quentin strike down the two skeletons, once more leaving them as dead as they belonged. Durden wipes the sweat from his brow. "You're a cleric?" "Yes, I am." "Useful," Durden remarks. Quentin jumps up towards Mike and Durden. They had just done something amazing. Amdar's attention, however, is affixed to the hole in the center of the room. He is drawn to it, unsure if it is a thirst for knowledge or for something deeper. He slowly marches towards it and plunges himself inside the hole. The concerned shouts of Durden, Mike, and Quentin are the first thing Amdar hears, but the voices fade away as he braves himself and opens his eyes. Amdar was surrounded by blood, but still he sees something he does not know how to describe. An oval symbol with a cross dividing it into 3 sections. In each section is an eye, and the perimeter of the symbol dances with tentacle-like curves emerging from it. Amdar observes as the symbol pulsates, almost drawing it towards him, before suddenly two thick dwarvish hands grab him by the shoulders and pull him out of the pool. "What are you doing, lad?" Durden shouts in confusion. Sorry, I was just, looking," Amdar responds. He decides to keep the information to himself. "We have bigger things to worry about," Mike chimes in. "Let's make sure we all get out of here alive." Quentin and Durden shoot strange glances at Amdar, but they both know that wizards do strange things. The next room had a large staircase, leading to an L-shaped landing above, which overlooks the floor where the party stands. It was easy to make out that the next door was at the end of the landing. Scattered across the room, though, are a number of armor stands holding swords, all facing odd directions. The party approaches the suits of armor. Getting some protection would be an intelligent strategy, but as Durden begins to inspect one of the suits, it suddenly swipes down with its sword, slicing at the forearm of the dwarf. One by one, the armor stands begin to animate. Even though they are completely hollow, some magical unknown once more is causing them to animate. Quentin slams down on the chest plate of one of the armor stands, causing it to cave in, but this does not slow it down, however, as it retaliates by swiping at the nimble halfling. Amdar shoots a firebolt, standing in the backlines, while Mike rushes forward with his warhammer. The armor stands are now still striking at the party continuously, whittling down the defenses, each blow at full force, unabated by all the strikes the party trades with it. Amdar looks around nervously. Some fights are harder than others, and victory is not always assured. They have to make a run for it. They would not survive this encounter otherwise. Amdar highlights the exit to the party as he runs towards the staircase. Mike follows soon, keeping a wary eye on the armor stands. But Durden is built for situations like these. He draws the attention of each suit of armor, allowing Quentin to get away in the brief moment of respite he provides. Durden tanks each hit from the stands as they continually slice at his body, now more and more scars appearing across the chest of the dwarven soldier. The rest of the party runs up the landing towards the door. Once through, Durden shoves an armor stand to the ground, before himself running up the stairs. Each stand tries to swipe at him, but they are not as fast as the soldier. Durden was trained in the way of the eagle by his master. He knows the strength of speed. Dashing towards the party, he signals them to be ready, and at the final second, Mike and Quentin close the door, sealing the stands within, while Durden leaps through to the other side. The party hears pounding on the door for a few seconds before the sound ceases, and the armor stands creak back to their inanimate positions. Mike spares a quick healing spell on the dwarf, tending to some of the wounds he accrued fighting those armor stands. They are met on this side with large spiral staircases that seem to stretch vertically for more than a dozen meters. Amdar hears the sound of distant conversation at the top, barely more than a whisper, though he cannot make out what is being said. Although he wanted to discuss the ordeal that just befell them, he knows it more wise to stay silent. so he purses his lips and places a finger on them, indicating the need for quietness to the party. The group gingerly makes their way up the stairs. Peeking through an open door at the very top, they spot a large pristine pool, and posted in front of it are a pair of humanoids draped in dark red cloaks, the same symbol Amdar observed earlier pressed into the back of them. One of the figures is a human man with dark auburn hair, perhaps in his early 20s or so. The other is a tiefling with purple skin, hair shaved close to his head, also similarly young. In front of the pair stands another spiral staircase, the very top of which shines with a bright light. That is the party's way out. The party whispers to each other, "That's our escape. We don't know how strong those two are, and we don't know why we're here. We can discuss that once we're out. This is a prime opportunity to capture one of our captors. I wouldn't mind some answers. Mystery with no answer is no fun." "I'll play along, but let's not forget that surviving is more important than answers." Amdar thinks to himself for a second. "I have a plan, but I need to distract one of them." "Got it," Quentin winks as he pulls out his pan flute. Quentin takes a deep breath and blares out a note, making it seem like one of the armor stands is clinking their way up the stairs. The tiefling stirs in the room, and the conversation between the pair ceases. The human looks over and signals to investigate, but still keeps his own eye on the staircase in front of him. Ambulating towards the deeper set of stairs, the tiefling begins to descend. "Knock him out!" Amdar whispers urgently. Durden uses the flat side of his battle axe and bonks the tiefling on the side of his head, with Mike catching the body as to stifle the noise. Amdar flips through his spellbook once more until he finds the page he is looking for. He takes one good look at the now unconscious tiefling and begins to chant a spell, swiping his hand over his face. Instantly, Amdar's skin and features change, resembling that of the tiefling that lay in front of him. Quickly, Amdar takes off the dark red robes off the body and wears them over his own clothes, before emerging out of the staircase. The human man eyes him expectantly. "So, what'd you find?" Amdar opens his mouth, now perfectly disguised as the tiefling. He pauses for a second, and he realizes, in his rush, he failed to investigate what the tiefling sounded like, a rather essential step for his plan of deception. Praying to the Seldarine, Amdar chooses a voice at random. "Oh, nothing much." The human man pauses. Amdar stares at him. He stares at Amdar. Amdar stares at him once more, and he stares at Amdar. The man begins to run up the stairs as Amdar calls out to the party. Durden, Mike, and Quentin rush forward to intercept before he could run, but alas, a pool stands in their way. Summoning a bolt of divine fire, Mike throws a sacred flame at the cultist, but the bolt skids over the water surface and fizzles before reaching him. Quentin and Durden both, because of the pool, are out of range, unable to throw any of their own weapons. The party scrambles to the other side of the room, while the man runs up the staircase. Quentin throws a dart, which lodges itself in the man's hamstring, but he pulls it out and continues to ascend. He summons a sacred flame of his own, but it's cloudy and dark, unlike Mike, and as he throws it at Durden, it begins to sizzle and burn away at the skin of the dwarf. Quentin and Amdar run up, with Durden and Mike closely behind the pair, but the cultist had far too much of a head start. The man opens a trapdoor, which floods the staircase with light. He pushes through it and runs, his footsteps growing softer and more muffled with each step. Amdar tackles the door shortly after, emerging in a dense, thick forest. To his right, a roaring waterfall bakes on the rocks, and to his left, a thick bush covers the forest floor. Quentin pops up next to the elf, with Mike and Durden soon following. As they all scan the brush, the man was nowhere to be found. He had escaped. "Well, at least we still have the tiefling," Quentin exclaims. It was a little victory, but at the very least, the party was victorious today. The group descends back down the staircase, hoping to find any form of answer from the unconscious tiefling. Instead, they find only an empty room, a blank space where they had left the tiefling. "Damn it!" Durden exclaims. "We've escaped. Let us be thankful for that at least," Mike offers. The party treks back to the surface, emerging once more. They may have not received answers, but at the very least, they leave with their lives. Two pressing questions still linger in all of their minds. Where are we, and why us?